It's the middle of February, and for us dahlia growers, our thoughts are beginning to come together for planning for the forthcoming season. So if you have been growing cuttings and taking cuttings, then perhaps your season might have started a bit before now. We're going to do some pot dahlia cuttings, a small number this year, just to fill up a gap in flowers that we need. But other than that, then we'll be growing everything from tubers which have been lifted and stored over winter. So this is my store of tubers. They're in a sort of outbuilding, which we've got a small heater just in case the temperature does drop below 0. But other than that, they're just stored away here in my routine fashion. I'll show you what that is and what the tubers look like at this stage. There's also I've got some pot dahlia tubers which I'm going to be growing, a small number of those just to make up a size and colour that we were short of. So they are miniature white ball dahlias. And I'll show you those during this video as well. So let's have a look at these tubers in these storage boxes and see how they're getting on. So this is our box of mixed tubers, donated kindly by my daughter Laura. As you can see, we've labelled them. And we've just stored them in these boxes. There's no medium along with them, they're just placed into the box in this way. And in order to stop them from freezing, well, we're in a small room which has got a heat, and the heater turns on if the temperature gets below 3 degrees centigrade. And in order to keep them from drying out, I use this method where I just use some newspaper, a little spray of water now and again. So if the tubers are looking dry, then I'll just add a little bit of water to the newspaper to put some moisture back in the surroundings there. But these tubers look pretty good, they're not drying out. And I check them now and again, about every 3 weeks, perhaps 2 to 3 weeks, to check for rot. Make sure that none of the tubers are rotting. This one here is dried out, so we can remove that. And make sure that there's no darkness to any of the tubers, softness which would indicate rot. And if you do find a tuber that's beginning to rot, then deal with it straight away. Don't put it back in with the others, because it will tend to spread to the other tubers. So these are nice healthy tubers waiting to be set into action again. And what I'll do with these, which is what I traditionally do always, is to divide the tubers. So out of that clump there, we will probably get something like 5 or 6 adult plants, and I'll do another video dividing these tubers as time goes on. So these are nice and healthy. This is what happens when they dry out. They get a sort of wrinkled appearance. So that particular tuber there, you'd say that's dried out. This one here is dried out. This one here, these two in fact have dried out, but they were never much of a tuber to start with, really, so I'm not worried about losing the odd one like that. The others on this clump are nice and healthy, so happy about that. So let's put these back together again. That's sticking out a bit there, so I'll just remove that. Back into storage, and I use these they're actually compost bags which we're reusing, and that's to conserve the moisture within the around the tuber. If we kept it without that and just some newspaper, then it would dry out very, very quickly, because the moisture would just dry away from the tubers. So I put a little plastic cap on, and they should be nice and fit for the whole season. It's February now, so I'll get these probably in another 3 weeks or so. I'll start to put them in, divide them first of all, divide them into tubers, which we talked about, and then I'll put them in pots and get them started, get them warm, and get the plants going again. So let's have a look at some more here. This is yellow Jill. Same again, same procedure, and you can see the enormous tuber mass there, which I've cleaned and put into storage at the end of last season. Once again, there's no rot present there that we can see. The tubers are nicely plump and nicely firm, so they're not drying out. So very happy with those. We could plant that tuber as it is in the ground, but it's really very wasteful because the ground has only got so much nutrition to provide for a plant, and this particular tuber clump could put out maybe 12 or so shoots, and the ground that is planted in could not support 12 dahlias in such a small area. So it's very wasteful to plant the whole tuber, and that's why we divide them. A nice way of multiplying your stock. Divide the tubers, in other words, to cut them into perhaps 2 or 3 tubers per clump. And we'll come to that in another video. So those are healthy. I'm not going to show any more of these because they're all the same. They're all clumps of tubers waiting to be divided. I've counted them all, I've catalogued them, I've got an indication now of how many plants I'm going to have from each of those, and everything's hunky-dory. Those tubers I've just shown you were tubers that we've grown, plants that we've grown ourselves here, and we lifted them sometime around about October time after the first frost, and you can see the size and how healthy those tubers look. These tubers have been bought in. So these are tubers which are commercial tubers which have been bought in, and you can see straight away that the tubers are much smaller than the tubers that we grew here on the farm. They don't look nearly as healthy, do they? So when we buy from the wholesalers, this is a sort of thing that we might be contended with. They're small, they're a bit miserable looking, many of the necks have been damaged, and these poor things may or may not give us some plants. I must say that's the worst example of the ones that we ordered this year. Some of the others are rather better, but at least we find that the commercial tubers that we buy in are never as large and healthy. So these are, again, that we bought in commercially, and you can see the size of the tuber doesn't compare with the tubers that we grew here. However, we will get some plants from those. They're not too bad. I might decide to plant the tuber clump as it is, or I might divide that perhaps into 2. But you can see they're much smaller tubers. I think one of the reasons why they choose to market them in this way is that they're much easier to transport. You can imagine you can put 10 of these tubers into a small package. If you tried to put 10 of the tubers that we grew here that I showed you, it would be a much larger package, and of course much more difficult to transport. So these are kept reasonably small for those sorts of reasons. Now these little gems are DAHLIA tubers, and you'll see they're very special, packed with living care. So that is a DAHLIA tuber, and what a DAHLIA tuber is a tuber that's been grown in a particular way. So this plant was grown inside a pot to restrict its root, the size of the root that could develop tubers. So imagine this tuber is grown, this plant, this dahlia is grown in a small pot like this, and then at the end of the season it's ready for sale. And the reason why they do this is that because it's such a concentrated mass of tuber, they put out many more shoots than a normal tuber would, certainly a normal tuber of that size. So once again, they can transport this because it's small. And it's useful for the grower because we will get something like, maybe if we're lucky, 12 or so adult plants from those in the way of cuttings. So there we are. We'll come back to pot tubers and their use and how we actually do the division, etc. on another occasion. I just wanted to show you those. Those are ready to go into to set them into growth immediately. So we'll get on with that in the next few days. So there we have it, the three sorts of tubers that we will be growing next season. This one was grown here and on the farm last year, and you can see how healthy and how big that tuber clump is. This is a commercially available tuber, which you can see is much smaller and is going to give us much less in the way of plant mass. And this little gem here is a pot tuber, which has been specially grown to be in a compact form because that will put out more cuttings, whereas this is used for propagation. So those are our three sorts of tuber clumps. Now, isn't it great that we're at the beginning of the season again? So here we are, middle of February, and we're starting to think of how to get these tubers off into growth, and looking forward to next year's dahlia season. I hope you are. Thanks very much for watching this short video, and hopefully I'll see you for some future videos. Thanks very much. Bye for now.